Hi everybody, thank you for tuning into another video on TK's Tech Corner. Today we're going to be taking a look at a dock by WAVLINK that is for the Steam Deck and ROG Ally. It says ROG dock, so I'm assuming it supports ROG Ally and ROG Ally X. We'll test it out. I've got the Ally X here as well as the Steam Deck. We'll compare this to the original Steam Deck dock just to see how it compares in terms of connectivity, ports, etc. Size, and we'll maybe I've got an external display here, so we'll connect it up to some stuff and we'll test it out and just quickly see how it works as well. So just before I crack it open then, let's have a look at the back of the box. There you can see the configuration of ports. And again, I will compare this to the Steam Deck dock, which I have got handy here as well. But what we're seeing here is we're seeing a network port on the side of the dock. That's 1000 megabits network port. We've got two USB-A ports, and I believe these are it does say here, I think they're 3.2 Gen 2 ports. So we've got the 10 gigabits per ports, so I think they're 3.1 Gen 2 at least. And then we've got the C port, which is another 10 gigabits pass-through port as well, 100-watt power delivery in, and then we've got the HDMI 2.1 as well there to support 4K display out. So let's quickly get this open and let's compare this to the original Steam Deck dock. And then maybe, because you're obviously watching this video because you might be considering to buy a dock that supports multiple formats, or maybe just some enhanced connectivity options that maybe the Steam Deck dock isn't satisfying for you, or maybe you just haven't got the original dock and you want a second one, and therefore you want your first dock and you're weighing up your options, right? So first thing I notice here immediately compared to the original dock, which is here, is this cable is nice and long. And why is that important? It's important because on the Steam Deck, and actually I'm just going to get both consoles quickly. So on the Steam Deck, as I was saying, the charging port or the connectivity port is on the right hand side, and that is why on the Steam Deck original dock they've got a shorter cable on the right hand side, which works absolutely fine for the deck itself. But on the ROG Ally and Ally X, the ports are on the left hand side. So if you're trying to use this dock, A, it's too small, it won't fit anyway, but B, the cable would never reach over. So the fact that we've got a dock now with a longer cable means you've got the flexibility of connecting it to the device, whichever device you're using, on both sides with no issues whatsoever. So let's just quickly put these aside for a second and compare the docks, right? So the original Steam Deck dock, as you can see here on the back, has got all of the ports. Now, one thing that I do like about the original dock is all of them, including the network port, is at the back, which is nice because when you've got it sitting under your TV or under your monitor, as I have it, then all the cables are exiting from the back and you've got nothing sticking out the side. It looks pretty neat. The one thing I noticed immediately about this one is the LAN port, unfortunately, is on the side, which means I'll probably have to get a right angled LAN cable sticking out so that the cable goes straight to the back. Not a big issue, not a deal breaker, and overall I think it's got more advantages than disadvantages, but that's just something to point out that I've noticed immediately. So maybe you hadn't thought about that and now you might be scratching your heads. Okay, so let's go to the back. We've got two USB-A ports compared to three. So on the WAVLINK dock, we've got two 10 gigabits per second ports. On the Steam Deck dock, I think according to the original spec, if I remember correctly, I think again these are 3.1 Gen 1 ports, which I think only provide 5 gigabits per second data transfer rates. So you've sacrificed one A port, but that's been replaced by a C port, which I think is more preferable these days anyway. Two A ports, probably still more than enough. I only ever use one for my keyboard and mouse dongle. But then you've got that replaced with a 10 gigabit C port, which I'll be honest, I much prefer. HDMI 2.1 versus I think on the original Steam Deck dock, it was a HDMI 2.0 port. So we've got a better specification port there. What I also noticed is on the Steam Deck dock, we did have a display port, which is now completely gone. That was DisplayPort 1.4. That's gone. So you've just got the HDMI 2.1, but I suppose this 10 gigabits per second port might also pass through display. I don't know. the power delivery port here is the port you're going to use to actually power up the device and then through the dock. So your charger or power adapter is going to plug into that port over there, and this is slated to provide 100 watt of power delivery in, and I'm not sure what the pass-through is. Maybe that might be written on the box somewhere. Possibly, if I'm reading that correctly, it says 100 watt power delivery in, uplink charging to the computer up to 85 watts. So that's going to be the main power cable. It doesn't really say what the capability of the C port is for pass-through charging, but I suppose it's going to be sufficient for the types of devices we're going to connect. We're going to see if it powers my display anyway, because I'm going to plug that in and see what happens. Because I know with the Steam Deck or with the ROG Ally X, if I connect that straight to the display port, it will run power the device and actually pass the signal through from that one single port. So we're going to find out if that effectively also potentially replaces the display port, kinda, you know what I mean, right? So let's get testing this thing. I'm going to provide some power to it. Loads of things going on here. So I'm going to provide power today through a power pack which supports 100 watt power delivery. So I'm going to plug that in, just get it out of the way. Loads and loads of things on the table here while I'm trying to get this video done. I'm going to plug this to the power delivery in, and I guess the first candidate on the desk is going to be the Steam Deck, right? So the Steam Deck is thinner for the main part of the console compared to the ROG Ally and Ally X, which is a lot thicker. I love the profile of the Steam Deck still, and it's still overall very, very comfortable. It's probably the most comfortable out of all of them, to be honest. Just lacking in power a little bit these days compared to something like this. I'm going to get the display in view quickly. Right, so you can see the display fully. I'm going to plug this into the Steam Deck C port, and the light's on, so we know it's charging. And then I'm going to power it on, and let's just see what happens. I'd expect nothing to happen, because what I've done like an absolute amateur is I haven't plugged the display port cable into the actual dock. So let's just do that quick. Right, that's now in. So I'm expecting this to do something, hopefully sometime soon, to power up the display. If not, I'll plug the HDMI cable in and see what happens. I know for a fact that if, for example, I had my, I might actually have to change input, but I'd expect it to do it automatically, to be honest. If I had the C port going straight into the deck, then I think that's going to come on, and you can see that's working absolutely fine. So if I'm trying to pass it through the C port, it's not passing through display. Just going to try and get it in again quickly just to double check, make sure that it definitely isn't something I did before. So we can see that that's not working, right? So if I quickly just get a mini display port cable, and we can test that out before we switch over to the ROG. Right, so I've plugged in the mini display port, mini HDMI to the HDMI of the dock there. As you can see, it's getting power from the C port, which is good. So the display is getting powered because it won't get powered through the HDMI port. And we can now see that that's working absolutely fine. You can see the mouse moving around, no issues there whatsoever. And if I put my pin number, you can see that's working fine. So the dock display output is working via HDMI. In case you were curious about the C port for display output, in this case, you can now see that that's not going to be giving you what you want. But again, you don't get that with the original dock anyway, so you've not lost anything there, right? Other than that, we've got the network port on the side that we already looked at. I haven't got a LAN cable to plug in here, but obviously it's going to work absolutely fine. And then you've got another port, so I've connected my keyboard and mouse connector there, which I just used to enter my pin. We've got a spare port there as well. And if I wasn't using this for display, so for example, if I plug this out, display is going to go off because it's not getting any power, but then I could probably plug that into another power adapter and just get the display back on again. Now I've got the C port free there as well, so I can still use the C port for some other stuff, right? So other than that, this is all good. Let's quickly just test out the ROG as well. So the ROG Ally X, this is, as I said when I was unboxing, the box does say supports ROG, and it says ROG devices. I think it's ROG Ally on the actual product page, and Steam Deck, which we know works absolutely fine. The ROG Ally X is actually thicker than the ROG Ally. This is the X model, so unfortunately, due to its thickness, it doesn't sit in as intended by the actual, I guess, the manufacturer. It sits completely vertical, and I think if you tilt it forward a little bit, then you've got a bit of pressure going on the bottom of the display. Not a lot, and to be honest, I think it's not a deal breaker because it's got these rubber grips here, right, on the front. So you can see it's protecting the device on all around anyway. So you've got the rubber grips there, you've got the rubber grips on the bottom, and the back thing, which isn't touching the device at all in this case. But given it sits quite snugly when it's standing vertical, and doesn't look like it can actually even fall over, to be honest, right? And the fact that you've got the rubber grips there means you can probably get away with this for the ROG Ally X as well. So if I plug that in, the charging light is obviously going to work because it's just a matter of getting the connection in, and the device is on already. I've signed in with my fingerprint, and you can see it's working absolutely fine there, right? So I don't know if you can see that working there, and maybe if we launch Armory Crate, you'll see that's going to be working fine as well. So the dock is going to support the Ally X, Steam Deck. It says it supports the Legion Go as well, which I don't think is as thick as this, but I don't have the Legion Go here to test. But overall, yes, you can see it's a very, very capable dock. One thing I am going to do quickly is I'm just going to test the C port connectivity for the display like I did for the Steam Deck, and try and verify if it works here in this case with the ROG Ally X, because this is now connected via a Thunderbolt port. Say Thunderbolt, but it's actually a USB 4 port, I believe, rather than Thunderbolt 4, which I'll be honest, I get confused with all the specifications of these C ports these days. There's too many of them, in my opinion, so I don't expect that to work. There you go, it's not working. So we can see again that wasn't a limitation of the Steam Deck itself. This is the dock not providing a display out via that port, which is absolutely fine, but it does supply power to those devices that are connected, and the HDMI port is sufficient for providing external display capabilities anyway. And for most people using these types of devices, you're going to be connecting one display, and HDMI 2.1 should give you what you want now, really. You shouldn't have any issues with that. Other than that, again, the only thing that's probably worth mentioning here is the ROG Ally X sits a bit funny in here. It's not unstable at all. It is protecting the screen, again, with the bumpers on the front side. But so I wouldn't have any concerns of leaving it in there. Just a shame that it's not a tiny little bit wider so that it actually sits in there properly. But we can probably still get away with using that anyway. So that's the comparison of the WAVLINK dock to the original Steam Deck dock. This has no hope in hell of holding the ROG Ally X. I actually had to print 3D print an adapter to allow me to use this ROG Ally X in the dock, which has been working absolutely fine, but I think I might take the opportunity to replace it with a WAVLINK one now that it's here. It has got a lot better connectivity options in my opinion anyway. On that note, I'll end the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions about this awesome dock, please ask them in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner. I'll see you in the next one.